We'll do it live. Fuck it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Lineman Life. Me and Eben here. Going to be talking about pretty much whatever we want. We generally start in sports, but it's not something that is exclusively dictated in how we handle our topics of news. But I will start off by asking my man Ebbs, how you doing, man? How's it going? I'm doing good, man. Doing good. It's Friday. Can't complain too much. Got a black and mild over here I can light up on real quick. And just got done watching Joker last night, so that kind of changed my life a little. Yeah. Children of Men was a great movie. That was a great movie for sure. Yeah, it's The Dark Knight, of course. Yep. Whoops. All right, I'm just hopping on to our live stream so I can answer any questions that people have on here. Um, yeah, dude. You were talking about what? Dark Knight. Yeah, Dark Knight was definitely a transformative film for the comic book genre. And I think that this new Joker movie is the same way. I think that it does kind of transform how movies are perceived. Based on how things have been over the past 10 or so years. It's kind of been a walk on eggshells kind of pattern for the movie industry, where you have a bunch of people who are trying not to offend, who are trying not to, single out any one group of people in the country, and kind of have taken to this culture of being overly offended and being being trying to cancel people who don't believe the same things they believe. And I think this Joker movie kind of slaps that in the face. I mean, it's a very hard movie to watch. It's very very chilling, very disturbing, but at the same time, it's just so ultimately entertaining that it's it's separated itself from the bunch, in my opinion. So what about you, man? What's going on? You checked out the game yesterday. How'd you like it? Did you watch it? Yeah. Oh, hold on, Eb. Hold on, Eb. They're not getting you here on the. Let me. They're not getting your audio. Let me fool around with some things here. Yeah, no, I hear you. Let me. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, speak. Okay, that didn't work. Hold on. Uh, let's see. Let's try. Let me try it like this. All right, now try. Hold on. Okay, now let's try. All right, say something.
Hello.
There you are. There you are.
Hello.
We got
You
you
get
now.
it? Nice. Nice.
All right,
Yeah, so I
if
just
you jump on to my YouTube page, you can watch it live and you can see what people are saying in the chat.
am going.
Um,
So I wrote an article, I published an article today on medium.com
oh yeah,
for all of your listeners to check out. It's all about this player empowerment thing that's happening right now
yeah,
in the NFL, and just my thoughts on it, and compared to I talk about um I talk about my last year in
make sure you turn the audio down or
yeah,
mute the audio
yeah.
on yours.
I so I I talk about or my last year in Jacksonville in 2012 with Mike Mularkey, and
Yeah,
what a disaster that season was, and yet not one guy on that team. You looked around the locker room and you saw nothing but exhausted, depressed dudes.
yep,
And not one guy in that locker room, to my knowledge, was requesting a trade. Even our biggest stars, Maurice Jones-Drew, Mercedes Lewis. I think those guys were about the biggest we had at the time. But
yeah,
not one guy was requesting a trade. You know, and just this change that's happened. Where players are expressing their displeasure and how they feel about the situation they're in, and what their thoughts are on where they'd rather be, or what their coaches are doing, etc. And it's really interesting to me, because I don't think NFL players, traditionally football players, are the silent warriors. They go to work, we put our head down, we grind it out, no matter what the circumstances is, no matter how fucked up it might be.
hmm
And that's changing. And I think that whether the level of play is changing or not, I think the violence of the game is surely shifting. But at the same time, I think it's a necessary step,
yeah,
into the ultimate growth of, NFL players need to wake the fuck up. You know,
yeah,
we allow too much of the to media and fans in particular, to paint us in this light of ungrateful assholes, egomaniacs, anytime we start expressing our displeasure because we get paid millions of dollars. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it
Totally agree.
doesn't. That's a bullshit argument. As far as it goes, as far as I'm concerned, because NFL players we're the only sport that doesn't have guaranteed contracts. We
hmm
don't have lifetime health insurance, when God knows 99% of guys leaving the NFL are in dire need of health care for the rest of their lives,
hmm
whether that's for orthopedic issues, psychotherapy, medication, etc.
hmm
We get 7 years of health care after our NFL career. I mean, sure, that's great, but then what? Most guys are on Cobra. Anybody on Cobra knows that shit is way too expensive. It's not sustainable,
Yeah,
you know? And so, we've talked about it, but, I think this is a big step in the right direction, whether we like it or not, whether the old dogs who are complaining about, these guys talking too much and the level of play taking a hit, whether that is, that's going to be out there, however uncomfortable we all want to be about it. But it's a necessary step in the evolution of the NFL player mindset, you know?
yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And for anybody who's just kind of walking in, this is Eben Britton, former Jacksonville Jaguar teammate of mine, brother of mine, Chicago Bear lineman. We're just here kind of talking about the new culture that has kind of emerged in the NFL that revolves around, somewhat of a player empowerment movement, but also at the same time, a shift in the traditional culture of football players and how players treat the situations that they're in as players on certain teams. And he pointed out a situation that we had in Jacksonville back in 2012. And I've done a video where I've actually spoken about this as well. How we had Mike Mularkey as our head coach, and it was probably the most dreadful, no, not probably, definitely the most dreadful season of all of our careers, everyone in that locker room. He grounded us down to dust in terms of the amount of work that we did on a weekly basis. We were completely overworked. And players just didn't have the kind of energy or the kind of love and excitement for the game throughout that season on the Jaguars because of, the extreme level of exhaustion that we were all dealing with, trying to do our jobs. And, it took away a lot of guys' love for the game. And it's just something that, while we were there, you didn't hear any players asking to be traded. We went 3-13 that season. And nobody asked to be traded. We had guys like Maurice Jones-Drew, a guy who is up for the Modern Era Hall of Fame in the NFL. We had Maurice Jones-Drew. We had Rashean Mathis. We had, did we have Drayton Florence that year? We had, or I think that was Del Rio's last year. But we had a number of notable guys, notable NFL players. Nobody asked to be traded. Nobody asked for a way out. We just continued to try and do our jobs the best we could because it's what we were getting paid to do. That was our livelihood. Yeah. And now, am I saying that the culture is incorrect to handle it the way that it's being handled now in the NFL? No, I'm not saying that because to an extent, players back then, as players, there was a little bit of a fear of coming out and putting yourself out there like that because you would be like pretty much alone. You'd be in the spotlight alone trying to do that because nobody's following you down that path.
No, fuck no.
Because of the ultimate retribution that you could receive from the coach, not just from the coaches, but from the general manager, from the owner, for stepping out and kind of putting your team on blast for how they're handling your situation as a player who is not happy with how things are going in the franchise. So to a degree, I can understand that move to empower the players as individuals, as brands within themselves, to try and pressure a franchise into making changes, pressure a franchise into doing the things necessary to bring about a winning culture now instead of later. And, there is a point to be made with that, but also at the same time, where do you draw the line? Where is that line between self-empowerment as a player and, selfishness?
Being Antonio Brown.
And being a person like Antonio Brown, a guy who has no regard for anyone on the team but himself. Yeah. And has shown that he doesn't have the decision-making ability to know the difference between what's acceptable and what's not when you're trying to make a point or push for change within your franchise. And I totally agree with what you're saying there, Eben. I just think that, nowadays in the NFL, the entire game in and of itself is changing, the entire game is changing and it's not necessarily all for the better. You have situations right now, obviously you look at something like the Rock Nation deal with the NFL, and I see that situation and I think to myself, was that even a necessary move to make in a league that makes more money than any other sport on earth? Why would you need to bring in a figure like Jay-Z and have you seen these halftime shows, man? The halftime shows are like, what is this? They use the same camera on every one of them. They're all in a basement, and it's all black and white. I'm like, they're doing the least amount they're spending the least amount of money possible so that they can hold on to a lot of the money that the NFL has given Jay-Z with this deal. And, okay, social justice initiatives, where are those at? We haven't seen any of them.
Yeah.
We haven't seen one thing that they've done to really justify all of the hoopla that was made when Jay-Z decided he wanted to make this little money move and sign a contract with the NFL.
Yeah, that was a total PR stunt.
Yeah, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
mean, it was a complete PR stunt.
And you know, I'm a little on the fence with the whole, you know, Colin Kaepernick thing. I mean, there are parts of it I understand one end, there's parts of it I understand the other. I think once you take a settlement from the NFL, now you have to shut up.
You're done.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're done.
now you have to shut up. You can't
Yep,
say another
that
word.
that's it. And I'm sure in that settlement, whatever the meaning was behind his initial, taking a knee, which of course was to shine a light on police brutality in America.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the media had turned into this frenzy about disrespecting our military. So his whole argument got fucking totally drowned out. He was basically completely blackballed from the league, became a pariah,
Mm-hmm.
was had an opportunity to continue as a thought leader in this space, but then took a settlement which probably said he couldn't say another fucking word.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, what good was that? You know, I get it. You probably got 100 million from the league to if that,
Yeah.
you probably got,
I'm thinking they might have paid him just for a few years of missed time.
right. So maybe, I don't know, call it 20 million,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever it is, it's like, dude, so now you can't say anything. Now you can't be in front of any sort of argument or protest like that anymore. So, and the NFL, I don't know if you had a chance to check out that tape that was released about the owners meeting when they were trying to figure out what to do with Kaepernick, and they had like some players, and this tape got released.
I hadn't seen
And
it.
this was like, when was this? This might have been like April of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it was maybe a handful of players involved, or maybe it was just
You
maybe
talking
this
about? Are
one.
you talking about the comment
There
that
were,
was made by the Texans owner about not letting the inmates run the prison?
yes, yes, and then they were all terrified of Donald Trump. Like,
Oh yeah,
all of them
yeah,
were like, it was a big discussion on, like, oh well, Donald is going to tweet against the league if we just allow this guy to keep doing this. And it was this whole thing like, who are these pussy ass billionaire owners? Like, what do you guys, what is this? What has this become? I don't understand the fear of the ownership of the front office of the NFL to keep this thing so clean. People, you know, football, let's face it, attracts the savages of our community who don't go into the military. You know,
yeah,
they're the most savage individuals because they were usually, most of us were brought up in fucking very volatile, tough situations as kids. And we
yeah,
gravitated towards football because it was a place where we could take our rage out and express ourselves in a way that everybody loved us for it, you know?
yeah.
So why is the NFL always trying to paint themselves into this light of like, we're fucking, we're just these like Christian, cleanliness, white knights of the world, and it's fucking bullshit. It's not working anymore. And
Yeah, and you know, I think that it just kind of piggyback what you're talking about, dude. I mean, we are regular people. I think that's what kind of gets lost in the facade of what an NFL player is. You know, they say we're role models, they say we're this, we're that, but at the end of the day, we're probably the most relatable group of athletes amongst all the athletes in major professional sports because
yeah,
our careers don't last forever. We don't
yeah,
get paid as much as everybody else.
yeah,
And, you know, we are in the communities and we're in the, you know, we live in the regular neighborhoods that most people, you know, live in who support the team. And, you know, you can see it in our actions. You can see it in, you know, our flaws. You can see it in our demeanor that we're not, you know, we're not the we're not the bougie type. We're not the necessarily the prima donnas, that you see. At least most positions aren't. But we're the most relatable. So it's I don't see why it's always so shocking to people to see that football players make some of the same stupid mistakes that we all make in society, because we actually live closer to that than other athletes in other sports.
Yeah. Yeah, no question.
Let's see. Mark Brennan asked, you guys think the NFL or the XFL will last? The XFL, Vince McMahon's new league. Did you see the little trailers, the little teasers they had for each team?
No.
A few months back. It was all right. I'm not gonna lie. Bleacher Report had a they did an article on it. They had, I think there's 16 teams, and I think that they had like preview trailers for 8 of them. And I mean, they were pretty high production value trailers. And the logos, even for the teams, are actually pretty good logos. I mean, I'm not going to say that, they're no better or no worse than any NFL logos, but at the same time, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little bit different in terms of quality and instant brand association. But, I give the XFL about as much a chance as, what was it? The AAFL? AAF? Is that what it was?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm just looking at, because maybe it was like 2 or 3 years ago, all of a sudden there were like 4 different football leagues getting ready to pop up. Where are they?
Well, one of them's already come and gone.
Yeah, one of them's gone. I know that.
You got the XFL coming to make its second debut. They had the XFL back in the late 90s, I think it was, early 2000s. That lasted like 2 seasons. Then you had Arena League. Arena League actually did surprisingly well for a while.
Yeah.
And then it died out. But the AAF, the Alliance of America Football League.
Done.
But I'm not sure. I'm gonna give it a few years. I'm gonna give it.
When does the XFL launch?
That's a good question. I don't know. Let me take a quick check. I think it starts next year. It starts after the Super Bowl. So it'll start February 2020.
I think Andrew Luck's dad is like the commissioner.
Yeah, Andrew Luck's dad's the commissioner. So you can probably be sure Andrew Luck is going to have a pretty high up position in that league when it starts. Something nice to fall back on, I guess, to start.
Yeah, that's cool. If you're interested in that.
And I think the first player that they signed is Landry Jones, the former OU quarterback.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they've got 8 teams. They've got the New York Guardians, the DC Defenders, Tampa Bay Vipers, St. Louis Battlehawks, Dallas Renegades, Seattle Dragons, Houston Roughnecks, and LA Wildcats.
Okay.
And the logos are legit. I mean, you look at the logos; they look like legit logos. I mean, I'm on their official website, and they've got some stuff. They're already doing combines and stuff like that.
It's like some fucking Any Given Sunday shit, dude.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it looks like it could, have a chance at doing something. We'll see. I think that their best route to go in terms of trying to give themselves an opportunity to be successful is probably to fashion themselves as the minor league feeder system for the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the only way to run it, because you're just, the monster of the NFL is just way too big and powerful to come in and try to snatch up that any bit of that market. I mean, you're
Yeah,
just going to
yeah.
get
You're not competing against the NFL
yeah,
in any way, shape, or form. That's pretty
yeah,
much that's a
exactly.
foregone conclusion. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, so I think that playing it as a minor league and playing the season, you know, playing the season after the NFL season is a good. I think that's a good way to go. I don't really know. They've done it before. Why didn't
Mm-hmm.
it work before? I don't know. I don't really understand the mechanics of that. I mean, the business, the money just must not have been there.
Yeah, and you're going to need a substantial amount of money to be able to withstand or to maintain the league for the first few years. I mean,
Yeah,
you look
yeah,
at what happened with the AAF. The AAF was out of money halfway through the first season.
exactly.
And then they basically gave up any creative rights, any decision making rights to I think it was the CEO of CBS. Once he put in a couple of $100 million, and he had the first, and he had the first option to decide whether or not to fold the league. And at a certain point,
He
about
was
three
like,
three weeks
"Fuck
later, he
this,
was like,
dog.
"Fuck this shit, fold it."
Fold this shit,
Ah.
dog." Do you think that had anything to do with CBS's ties to the NFL? And he just bought the controlling shares to shut it down anyway?
Well, I mean, this is the first time I actually thought about it that way. So, I mean, it's a possibility for sure. For sure. Definitely. Could
I
have
mean, you
been.
never know, man. You never know. These people at the top are just dudes.
Yeah.
They just
They,
got a lot more access and a lot more money. So
yeah.
think about it. When all of us have our things, our business interests, our whatever, our vision of what we want to do with our lives and the things in our life. And so if you're a guy who owns an NFL team or you have a partnership with the NFL, etc., I mean, the media part, how many billions of dollars is changing hands between the NFL and these cable networks?
Yeah.
Massive amounts.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, DirecTV and the NFL have a $4 billion deal with Sunday tickets. So,
Exactly. How much are the players getting of that?
well,
None?
it's supposed to be what, 50%?
No, dude, no. Don't the NFL didn't wasn't that the whole thing when we were playing when those guys from the PA would come in and they'd talk about, and at first because they were like trying to get us to buy into the lockout
Yep.
and staying strong during the lockout, and they said, "Look, guys, the NFL, the player, the what do you call it? What do you call that? The profit sharing between the
Mm-hmm.
NFL owners and the players is the lowest in the NFL of any other sport. In
Mm-hmm.
the NBA, it's 50-50. In the fucking NFL, it's something horrible. I
Yeah. I
I,
think it was
I
something
feel like
like,
it's like
yeah,
13%.
12 or 13%. Yeah.
So that hasn't changed, dude.
Yeah, I think what the way that they worked it out in the CBA was basically it was set up that players would be able to, or the teams would have access to 50%, a 50-50 split of revenues in regards to negotiating player contracts. So while that
Uh,
money didn't directly go to the players, it was available to be given to players as part of new deals. And you see
that's
what
right.
kind of
That's
happened after they started that CBA. You start seeing a lot of veteran players no longer getting signed to teams because now that 1 year minimum had
yes.
went up to
Went
like
up.
1.5-2 million dollars,
Exactly. It got
which
cheaper to have younger
it
guys.
got cheaper to have the younger guys and it got more expensive to have the veterans. And I think
Yeah.
that the unintended consequence from the players' side was that us getting more money meant that meant that even though we would get more money, they still have the option of not giving it to us.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
would
We
go,
have all the money.
and this happened to me after my last year with Dallas. um, the Falcons wanted to bring me in, and the GM and the head coach, who was Mike Smith at the time. You remember? I think you might remember Mike Smith.
Yeah, I remember him.
Hey,
Lou. Sorry, my dog just got home.
And the head coach wanted to sign me to bring me in, to Atlanta, and the GM wanted to just sign a player up from the practice squad. Yeah. So I got Mike Smith, I got Dirk Cutter, I got
Dirk.
Who was our tight ends coach? Remember, he was the old head coach from the Vikings.
Oh, Mike Tice.
Mike Tice, and I got Mike Tice. These guys are all calling my agent and calling me like, "Hey, Uche, we want to bring you in. We want to sign you to, 1 or 2 year deal. We're just trying to get past the GM. The GM and Mike Smith fucking hate each other."
Really?
And yeah, it was like they hate each other. They argued about it because instead of signing the Asamoah cat from Kansas City, they were going to actually sign me instead in the before I signed with the Cowboys. I believe they wanted to do a 3-year deal, and everything was okayed except for the GM. The GM wanted to go with the guy from Kansas City, and it's funny because he worked under Andy Heck, who was our O-line coach. Andy Heck was his O-line coach in KC, and they ended up going with the Kansas City cat. Fast forward to about midway through the season after I left Dallas, the Falcons are like, Mike Tyson's like, yo, we fucking hate this fucking guy. He's just not the guy. He's not the guy. He's not a good guard. And so now and he got hurt. So now they're trying to replace him. So they're calling me, and I remember having to drive all the way up to Flowery Branch, like the next morning. And I was like, thank God I worked out this week. I was like, because, man, I was about to take a little break. I've been training, for a minute. And I was in Dallas. I was like, man, I'm about to just chill out. Fuck all this training shit. And then, I drive all the way up there at like 5 a.m.
Oh my God.
Get up there, go and see their team doctors. I did a quick workout for him. I mean, it was all, it wasn't hard because, I had Tice, Mike Tice was there doing the workout, and Tice was like, good job, Uche. Good job, Uche. Yeah, good job, Uche. They're trying to basically get it hyped up so that because the GM was there, the owner was there, all these motherfuckers are there. There's like 4 of us there, and they're kind of mainly looking at me because I've been the one that they've been talking to for like the last 2 days about, hey, we really want you, the offense, the playbook. It's Dirk Cutter's playbook. It's all the shit you ran your first, 6 years or your first 5 years in Jacksonville. And I'm like, hell yeah, this should be easy. This should be an easy go. I know everything they want to do. After the workout, I'm waiting in their little they got a little conference room. I'm just waiting in there, and a couple other guys walk in that did the workout as well. Then they leave. They're like walk into a room, couple minutes, come out, leave. They're gone. I'm like, all right, this must be it. About to be a Falcon. I'm already living here, so it's all gravy. And then Mike Tice comes in. And he's like,
Uche.
Uche. You know how he talks.
No.
He's like, Uche.
No.
This is why I fucking hate this league sometimes. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? He's like, you got this fucking guy, never played a down of fucking football in his life, but he thinks he knows what a good football player looks like. I'm just going to be honest with you, Uche. He wants to sign a guy up from the practice squad. And I'm like, what? From the practice? So you want a guy who don't got no game experience to be in there protecting your $100-and-something million quarterback against a guy who has, who has 8 years experience, 6 of my 8 years as a starter, You know, 100+ games started. You know, all AFC honors. You know, top 5 player at my position in the NFL, and you want to go with basically a undrafted free agent rookie? Like, what the hell is I was like kind of pissed because I was like, dude, I drove like an hour up here. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. They don't give a fuck, dude.
And, you know, and Mike, you know, I mean, we know the coaches, man. He was like, hey, man, you know, that's how these motherfuckers do. Wish, you know, wish it was different, and I wish that it wasn't the way it is, but, you know, that's how they do. So that's, you know, that's where we're at. And, you know, I drove my ass back to the house, you know, jumped back in bed, played some video games the rest of the day, smoked some weed, and was like, fuck them. I said, if I don't, you know, and my agent called me later on that day and was like, the Redskins may want you to come and, you know, and do a quick workout. They say that, you know, they may need you to come in to be a swing man. I was like, nah, I ain't going to D.C. I said, I ain't going to D.C., man.
Who's the head coach then?
I don't know who their head coach was. I think it may have been Jake Gruden, maybe, or Shanahan, one of them.
Yeah.
But I was just like, no. Being a swingman means that I can be cut in any fucking day, and especially if I haven't been there, you know, since the start of training camp, and who knows what kind of offense they run. I don't feel like going through all that shit. You know, I already went through that with Dallas. And, you know, I just kind of was like, you know, if I don't get a call from another team before the end of the season, I'm just going to call it. You know, it's whatever. But, yeah, you know, that's
the business,
that's
man.
That's the business. So,
fuck, dude. I found out I was done in Chicago. My wife and I were like, I was like, we got to set down a headquarters somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, let's move back to LA. Let's take the money we have left, buy a house, and let's just start figuring it out, you know? Yeah. I had gotten that off season. I got a few calls. The Bills wanted to bring me in. The Falcons wanted to bring me in. We had moved in with my wife's parents in Pasadena for like 6 weeks while we were looking for a house. I was getting these calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, you know, I was talking to the Bills coach. I was talking to my agent about Atlanta. The weird thing was the Bills had just hired the O-line coach from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave like their scouts my personal number, and they were contacting me directly.
The scouts?
Like, yeah, I'm like, or like whoever the front office people who wanted to bring me in. And I'm like, why don't you call my fucking agent, please?
Yeah.
Like, don't call me. Like, what do you want me to say, man? And so I got to this, I sat with it because they basically came on like the same day, these two offers. And I was like, you know what? I can't even bring myself to go to the airport to get on that plane to go to either one of those places.
Yeah.
You know, I was so done because I was just over that fucking the business, the rigmarole, man.
Yeah, because we just weren't those kind of like we were drafted players. We were players who, you know, who were playing on the field, or were with the same franchise for an extended period. So, you know, I was never going to be used to bouncing around. Like I just was not going to be down for that shit. Like sign me and keep me or don't call me.
Yeah, that's how I felt, man. I mean, and maybe that's, you know, maybe that's fucking egotistical, dude, but I just wasn't going to do that. I don't know, you know? Like, some of these guys, you know, that was always my goal and my vision to make it to the NFL. And once I learned what it truly was and what it was all about, you know, I got to a point where I'd had enough, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't going to do that. You know, I had no interest in just going from one city to the next on 1-year deals. Like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I mean, it's an interesting time with that. I mean, because now it's like, some guys play on like 10 teams in their career.
Oh my God, dude. I could not even imagine playing on 10 teams, dude. I mean, that basically means you're a special teams rotational. You're a guy who's going to be just getting signed when somebody goes down on kickoff.
Yep.
Or kickoff return. And dude, after my first year, after my rookie year, dude, I was like, there's no way in hell they're ever going to put me on kickoff return again. Ever.
Fuck that, dude.
Oh, dude. I remember
in high school.
You probably heard the stories on the team in Jacksonville about how who was it?
You were part of the wedge.
Yeah, I was part of the wedge, dude, and I was fucking watched a motherfucker's lung get collapsed on the wedge my rookie year.
Fuck that, bro.
And I was like, what? How can a person's his lung is collapsed?
Yeah,
dude, this ain't worth it.
Oh no, bro. These guys are kamikazes in that fucking. Those guys are fucking kamikazes on the special teams, dude.
Dude, I did a video on this probably the first like week or two that I was on YouTube, and swear to God, dude, this fucking guy, my rookie year in Miami, I got put on the wedge literally like the day before we flew to go to Miami.
Oh, God.
For the first preseason game of my fucking rookie year. So my first time in an NFL uniform, in an NFL game, and they put me on the wedge. And I was like, and everybody was like, ooh, they put you on that wedge, Uche. Oh, better watch out. Better watch out. Even Andy was like, hey, get your mind right. Andy was like, get your mind right. The wedge is, that's some serious stuff. And Andy's so dry that I just like totally blew off the comment. Yeah. He's like, get your mind right, Uche. That's the wedge is some serious stuff. So get your mind right. This is not going to be a game. Maybe a preseason game, but this ain't going to be no game. So I'm like, okay, what is this that they've put me on this? And we didn't actually have anybody to go against that day in practice. So I was going against air on the wedge. So I don't even know what I'm up against. I have no idea what is even coming for me.
Oh, and so legendary, bro.
And, dude, we get out there, and, dude, I swear to God, during the coin toss of that preseason game, I was like, please, God, offense up! Or no, defense up! Defense up! Please, God! They're like, kick return! I'm like, oh, my God! So I jog out onto the field, and I swear to God, dude, I jog onto the field. I'm like in my spot on the wedge, and I'm just looking around like, okay, who could I feasibly end up having to go against on this wedge?
Who was it?
And I see this fucking dude. Oh my God. 5 foot nothing.
Yeah, of course.
Built like a fucking cinder block. White dude. I could see the veins in his arms from 30 yards away. I could see the veins in his arms.
And he was gassed up.
Oh my, sweating everywhere. He's got the Thurman Thomas face mask on with the single bar coming down the middle, the one that Meester wore at center.
Yeah.
And, dude, he was looking, I could feel him staring at me from 30 yards away. I was like, fuck, don't tell me that's the fucker I got to block. Please. So we're getting lined up, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, so when does this start? When is he going to kick the ball? Because I got to get my ass moving. Like, these cats think that I'm like a defensive end. I'm just going to turn around and start sprinting back to this damn wedge. I got to go like 20 yards. I'm going to need to know.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
You know what I mean? So I turn around. I'm sprinting. I latch up with, who was it? It was me, Richard Collier, and damn, I can't remember the other cat's name, but Big Rich is on my right side, and then the other cat's on my left side.
Teuton?
No, not Teuton. This was Teuton. Teuton was lucky he wasn't on it. And we latch up, right? And I swear to God, it was slow motion. I'm looking for that dude. I'm scanning, and there he is. And he's running in a straight line right for us. I'm like, holy shit. So he's running, and I'm just like, please, God, please, God, please, God. And he just goes, boom, right through the other cat on my left. I mean, nothing. He's let go of my arm. He's gone. I'm like, oh, Jesus. And I kind of like take a quick look to the left and keep going. And me and Big Rich end up pushing one guy, just pushing him around. And we're just like,
oh my God, bro.
and we're just like, holy shit. You know, I look at Big Rich. He says, ooh, that boy, I forget his name. He said, man, that boy hurt. And we like, let's go, man. We gotta get in the huddle. Cause you know, they call the timeout, but offense was up first. Man, they carried this cat to the sideline. He looked like he had just got shot. Like shot in the chest. And the next day they were like, yeah, he got a collapsed lung. And he, you know, and I'm pretty sure they gave him a medical release because they brought in another lineman the next day.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, dude. And that's when I was like, I will get off of this wedge as soon as possible. Yeah. And my rookie year, I played in 9 games, and I was on the wedge for like the first 5 games. Oh. And luckily, I mean, it's different once we got into the regular season. Yeah. Cats was not really with that wedge shit. This was right towards the end of the life of the wedge.
Yeah, yeah.
And so guys would try to avoid it, but nobody really tried to blow it up like this dude did. This dude clearly was on like year 20 in the NFL because he was trying to blow that wedge. Oh my God. I can still like feel the wind of him running through this motherfucker on my left, just with a ferocity, just shoom, like a missile. And I was just like, wow, that's the NFL, huh? Moves fast. It's dangerous.
We've got some questions.
All right, here we go. Let me take a look here in the chat. Once again, appreciate everybody who's in on this live broadcast with me and Eben Britton. Let's see here. We got Michael Kelly says, I'm a freshman playing college football. I love the game, but I'm finding the transition from high school to college tough physically. How do I get my body right? I'm an O-lineman. Woo! Okay, Michael Kelly. Well, I remember my freshman year in college, and just to be 100% honest with you, all you can do is take it one day at a time. Yeah, I almost quit at Purdue. I almost quit.
Me too. Me too.
It was my freshman year. I think it was one of the last 1 or 2 years of true 2-a-day practices. I mean, this is up at Purdue University, up in Indiana, and
oh my God, it's like 120 in the summer.
My God, it was so humid because there's trees everywhere.
Yeah,
and it was hot, and we had to walk about a mile to practice every day from the locker room to the intramural fields.
Jesus.
Yeah, dude. We called it the March of Death. And we literally did that twice a day. You walked a mile twice a day to go practice for 3 hours each time. And we had Joe Tiller as our head coach. Rest in peace, Joe Tiller. But this guy's mentality, he was an old Bear Bryant style head coach. You know, he kind of pioneered that spread offense that everybody's using now in college and the NFL. But this guy, you know, he wanted to grind us. He wanted us to be forged in fire, tough guys. And, you know, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old on a college football team, you know, that's not anything out of the ordinary, right? But I'm telling you, I went there as a defensive end. So this is a 3-star recruit coming in as a defensive end who didn't work out but maybe like a week during the entire summer leading up to going to Purdue, put on like 25 pounds.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, wait, What you mean we're gonna condition? So my first, just the first 2 weeks of training camp were the most miserable times of my life. I felt slow. I felt achy. I felt, even if I was in great shape, I would have felt the exact same way, just because it was a new experience. It was a new way of playing football. And that transition, like you say here, Michael Kelly, and thanks for the question. It's a great question.
Yeah.
The transition here was so brutal. And I just, and then along with that atmosphere of, it's like you're in, it's like you're in band camp, like you're in rooms, in a dorm, and, you wake up earlier than you've ever really woken up in your life. And you start doing things early in the morning, and you don't have an appetite, and you feel nauseous, and you just feel exhausted all the time. You feel like your morale just sinks the longer this goes on. It just gets harder and harder and harder. But it is a rough transition. So don't think that it's something that is necessarily just unique to your situation. That is the way. That is just the normal traditional response that your body is going to have to being thrown into a new experience. The shock of it is going to shock your nervous system. It's going to put you in all kinds of fight or flight mode, reactions. Just, calm yourself and focus on getting through one practice, one period of practice, one part of practice at a time, to allow your body and allow your mind to actually get used to it. Once your mind gets used to it, you'll notice, because it'll start getting a little bit easier. You'll come to practice one day with a little bit more energy. Yeah. And then from there, you'll get an understanding. Your first year is always going to be just pure hell. So just one day at a time. What do you think, Eb?
I think you're right on. I really, dude, after my first season as a freshman, I went home for Christmas break, and I was like, I ain't going back. I was fucking exhausted. I was depressed. I was beaten down. I was more tired than I'd ever been in my life. I was, the transition is real, man, and it takes your body a long time. You're transitioning from being really a child in high school to now you're getting it. Now you're being transformed into a grown man really fast, because you're going against dudes that have been lifting a lot of weights. They've been busting their ass. They're trained savages for the last 4 or 5 years, and so coming in there, it's a big transition. I think Uche is right on. Take it one day at a time. Just keep breathing, lift weights, work your ass off, and just enjoy the grind, man, because one day it's not going to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to go get the grind. So just enjoy it while it's there. I know. I remember hearing guys say that too when I was in it, and I was like, fuck you, dude. But at the same time, it's true, man, because this is an incredible time of learning, and you are sharpening your own axe, the axe of who you are as a human being. You're sharpening that tool right now, doing all this shit that feels really hard.
Yeah.
So it is worth it,
Yeah.
What else are you going to do, man? What else are you going to do? Just be a fucking regular dude going to school. That's cool if that's what you want to do. But if you want to be a legend, this is a great place and a great opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Ebbs. And he's an offensive lineman, so you're definitely in. You're in the trenches, dude. Nobody gives a fuck about how you feel. Nobody gives a fuck about if you're hurt. They don't want to hear it. You can't be hurt as far as they're concerned. And
on that too, man, on the flip side of that, because that is the absolute truth. You're the O-lineman. You're the fucking dogs of the team. But start to take pride in that.
Yeah. Take
pride in you are the fucking savage of your football team. Yeah. All right, you want to fucking keep the beast caged up in the basement? and then just let him out for wartime, okay, fine. That's who I am then.
Mm-hmm.
And love that.
Yeah.
And know that whether you're getting the credit or not, without the O-line kicking ass, the team is shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Without
that's
the O-line, there is no team.
yeah. So just
Yeah. So
gotta
just keep strong on
doing
that.
it, bro.
Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing, Michael. Keep doing what you're doing. Definitely, like Eb said, we are a unique part of a football team. Probably the closest bonds that there are on the football team are between the offensive linemen. Just simply because we're the only position outside of probably quarterback that doesn't get subbed out during the game. Every other position gets subbed out. Every other position, players are allowed to take a breath, take a breather. But on the offensive line, we don't come out. Eb remembers, dude, you remember, oh my God. You remember those games? There would be those games. I can't remember exactly which ones. I remember we had one game in Buffalo. I think we had one game in I think we had one game at home against Buffalo where we went on We went on like a 22 play drive, dude. Yeah. We got to the sideline. We were delusional. We were like, oh God. It was so hot. It was like 100. That was the game. It was 110 or 120 on the field.
Yeah, we beat their ass too.
We beat the shit out of Buffalo that year, yes. But
we were running that like
one
play too.
Yes, we ran fucking like 20 plays. We got to the sideline.
They were like, guys, you chewed up 12 minutes of clock.
Yeah! We were like, sweet Jesus! Are we done? Is that the game?
I need oxygen.
Oh, they came right over after that drive and put the shades over the O-line bench and just started coming and pouring water all over everybody. We're like, help, help.
Oh, my God. It was awesome.
Orlando Jefferson says, I played defensive end in high school for a year. It was awesome. I had 4 sacks and 10 tackles, but I stopped for health issues, sadly. Well, we're sorry to hear that, Orlando. Obviously your health is always important. It's always number one.
Yeah.
And who knows, probably saved yourself from some brain trauma that would have come along at some point. But no, I know that football is just one of those sports in America. It's the American pastime. And, it's a dream for people to play the sport. So, unfortunately, you had health issues and you weren't allowed to continue. But definitely you can understand why so many of us love and play the sport, even knowing that there are some repercussions from it that will play a role later on in our lives. But yeah, it's Uche Waneri, Eben Britton here on Lineman Life live broadcast. If you got any questions, put them in the chat. It doesn't have to be solely about football. It can be about whatever. I went and saw The Joker last night. I thought it was an amazing masterpiece of a movie. Really enjoyed Joaquin Phoenix's performance. Really did not find any kind of, I wasn't influenced to commit any crimes. I know that. A lot of headlines out there that were trying to kind of play that agenda or that narrative that this movie was going to influence and incite violence among people. And, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, we come from a violent sport, a violent culture. When you look at how the media portrays things and how every little thing that doesn't necessarily fit into a certain kind of narrative is, labeled as a threat to the masses, how do you see that kind of thing that plays out? I mean, you look at a movie like The Joker, and that's just one example, but
well, dude, our media is just totally fear driven. Everything, turn on the news and it's just, any mainstream news that you turn on, there's nothing good happening out there. There's nothing good that they're reporting about, and so it's kind of, I guess, we have to be aware of the the social climate when it comes to, gun violence, or, these terrorist attacks that seem to happen way too frequently in America. And, they blow them up. I mean, you've got a movie like The Joker, man. Movies, film, it's an art form.
Yeah.
It's art. It's, it's not, it's the media fueling us with this fear, constant fear, mongering. It's just like, what do you think is inciting violence? All people are seeing on TV is division. So, social injustice. We're seeing, everyone pointing fingers at everyone else over one issue or another. You're seeing fucking natural disasters, and there's a lot of good and light out there in the world. And, there's a lot to be taken from any movie that shows us things that we don't get to see in our, little bubble of American life, which is it's so steeped in, blandness, and boring. We don't, human beings are not meant to be in a 9-to-5 gig, eating 3 meals a day, building, just their whole life devoted to, buying a house and being in this system, this ecosystem that America has for us built in, the American dream. We're meant to be out hunting and gathering and exploring and interacting with each other and fucking, pushing the boundaries of possibility as far as like our physicality and our achievements go. And yes, using our consciousness and our mind and our free will to create incredible technologies, et cetera, and to invent, but it's like, we're all so fucking cooped up. Mental health is at an all-time high, mental illness. Prescription pills have never been doled out in the thousands as they are right now. And people don't know how to live anymore,
Yeah. No, I agree.
So it's just, it's like, oh my God. So we have to make a story out of the Joker inciting violence in America. Don't we have enough things inciting violence already?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. And
we have a president who's fucking every other tweet is about, one group or another, and bringing more divide into our country. It was like, what? It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I mean, there are many different instances and situations in our culture that have a much higher likelihood of inciting reactions from the citizens of this country than a movie, than something that's made for the purposes of entertainment. And in this case with Joker, there is a little bit of a political message, a very subtle political message in the movie, but one nonetheless. And I thought it was very interesting. Orlando Jefferson asked if I saw any cops at the theater I was at. No, there were no cops at the theater I went to, and I went to a pretty big AMC over here, right outside of Atlanta, and there were no cops. And it was a pretty full theater, and everything was, we saw the movie. Everybody was talking on the way out. A lot of people clapped at the end of it. And it was a very good film. I mean, people were engaged from the beginning to end. And again, I think that, film is art, right? And when you look at this movie and you look at this story of the Joker, there is a little bit of ourselves that we're shown as a society in this film. I think that was part of the art that was being expressed in the movie, is that to a certain extent, society is complicit in the downward spiral and the unraveling of someone who is dealing with mental illness. And part of that complicity is rooted in our apathy, in kind of our passive approach to even having conversations about mental health. And and I think football players to a certain extent are another example of how that is, proven to be true in this movie. You have a lot of football players who are hailed as heroes, hailed as role models during their time as athletes. And when that time is done, like we spoke about before, the repercussions from the sport that cause the kind of mental issues for players that it can cause, there's not much of a light that's shined on that, because players are viewed more as tools of entertainment rather than as, everyday regular human beings who also deal with issues that can affect us psychologically, can affect us emotionally. And when you ignore that, when you don't pay it any credence, you have situations like Junior Seau. You have situations like, all these other number of players who have committed suicide or who have hurt family members and then committed suicide, like the linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs a few years back. Yeah. These are not things that happen out of the blue. These are things that have been building up over time. Raekwon Smith, who is actually the linebacker with the Chicago Bears.
What happened with him?
There was something going on with him, and they didn't really want to talk about it. The team didn't want to give out any information, of course, because it was of personal nature. But you got to think that there may have been a situation. I mean, as a football player, anytime I hear something about a player dealing with personal issue, if it's not something directly related to family or a wife or a child, or a baby coming into, about to have a baby with their wife or their girlfriend. If it's not something that's, easy to explain like that, and the team kind of shies away from talking about it, I begin to think about mental health.
Yeah.
I begin to think maybe Raekwon Smith felt like he was, there was a little bit too much pressure around him, and mentally he was not handling it well. And he wanted to take a few days away from the sport. I've noticed that players are, in that regard, they are very much empowering themselves to be able to pull themselves away from the sport when they feel that there is something that's not balanced mentally for them at that time. And it's a little bit easier to do that now as a player on a team than it was in the past.
Yeah, that kind of started when we were in.
Yeah.
They started, with the concussion protocol, and they started being more, I don't know, engaged. But dude, the way listening to you talk about this, I'm just reminiscing on all my seasons of football. And, first of all, how many times did you have your bell rung where you were probably clinically concussed, but did not say anything because getting your bell rung, getting shaken up, having a fucking big ass collision was part of what you were doing?
Yeah.
I know that I probably had, hundreds of those collisions that I never talked to anybody about. And then to take that further, I remember even in college, every year there were like 1 to 3 guys who would kind of fade out or disappear, or something weird would happen, or they would stop showing up for stuff. And then you'd see him in the hall and be like, "What's up, dude?" And he's like, and I remember this one kid, this guy, Byron Smith. He was a D lineman at Arizona. He was a big-time recruit out of JUCO. He was supposed to be like one of the best defensive tackles in the country. And he didn't play a fucking down at Arizona because he first got there. And literally, by the time I got there, he got there in the spring. I got there in the summer. We were the same draft class. And by the time I got there, he wasn't even allowed to practice anymore.
Wow.
And people were like, "What's wrong with Byron?" And they're like, "Oh, he's depressed." And thinking back, it's like, yeah, that's all.
He was having heavy CTE symptoms.
Yes. But back then, because, you know, as a younger player, I was always like, oh, concussions don't happen to me. I
Yeah.
don't get concussions. You know,
Yeah.
I don't get that.
I
And
remember, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, and no, it's just interesting, man, because, you know, I think that, you know, what you're saying is absolutely right. A, among the media, first off, you know, none of this shit gets any attention for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But B, I don't think it's really been acknowledged yet by players,
Yeah.
you know. And maybe the older guys have already been having these conversations, but I don't know because there's no community.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's no community of retired vets, NFL vets,
Yeah.
you know, that can come together and like, and because this is like crowdsourcing information.
Yeah.
You know, when we come together and we share our stories, it provides context for the things we experienced and we saw. And then we can put the pieces together and go, oh, yeah, fuck. I was up until the point in my second year when I started taking Adderall, dude, I was definitely feeling the effects of all those subconcussive hits I was taking,
Yeah.
you know, because I was depressed. I could barely sit in a meeting without fucking just falling asleep or just totally glazing over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could barely fucking get myself out of bed most days because I was so just wiped out and had no mental energy. And then I got out on Adderall and I was like lifted up out of that for a time period, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's why you hear more and more NFL guys taking Adderall as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
because the cognitive function is taking such a hit that they start taking Adderall and they gain it back so that they're mentally sharp again. And it's because of the concussions. That's the underlying issue, or the subconcussive hits, whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, dude. I started taking Vyvanse right after college, probably my second year in the NFL. Got tested when I was in middle school. They said I was ADD, but my parents never put me on medication. And then, got tested again in the NFL. NFL was like, yeah, you need medication. And I noticed an instant difference once I started taking Vyvanse. Like, it was
Yeah.
like my brain started firing on all the cylinders, started firing the correct
Yeah.
way again. Like, everything was just running smooth.
You're like, oh, this is how a normal person
Yeah,
thinks.
this is how a normal person feels. Like, they have a thought process that can maintain on a certain course of attention without just veering off every 25 seconds to something else. And when you talk about the subconcussive hits, dude, I feel like in college I took way more. I feel like in the NFL, once you learned how to block, once you learned how to actually play football the right way, and luckily for us, around that same time, we started to actually hear more about the concussion issues, and CTE was kind of discovered right around 2010, 2012. But even before that, players in the NFL generally, and I think it was more along the lines of the skill positions, everything outside of like the linebacker, running back box, players were like, get your head out of there. Get your head out of there.
Yeah.
Because, the main thing was you don't want a neck injury. You don't want to get paralyzed. You don't want to, hurt, crack a vertebrae. But, just as we learned to play football more as a professional, you learned how to use your hands so much better and so much more efficiently than you did in college.
It's so key.
And, in college, you kind of started with your head, and then you went from your head on downward to something else. But,
well, for us, it was always the triangle, the 3 points of contact.
Yeah.
The crown of your helmet and your hands.
Yeah.
And that was how you engaged every block.
Yeah, and as we just became more efficient with it, you learn to do it without getting your head involved so much. But in college, definitely took a lot of shots that would be considered having your bell rung. But I would probably say I'd had maybe 2 solid concussions throughout my career. One with the Jaguars and one when I was at Purdue. The one when I was at Purdue, I never reported, but I knew I was concussed. So, that's just kind of, that was the culture back then. And it just kind of, it's starting, only now is it starting to become really more of a subject that players are willing to take on and try to combat that by being more open about the kind of hits they're taking, pulling themselves out when they know they're not right. But let's get to some more questions here. Let's look at the comments.
Somebody said, who's the dirtiest player?
Let's see here. Yeah, somebody here said, who is the dirtiest player? Where is that question? I saw it. Okay, what's up, guys? This is from Drew P. Drew P says, what's up, guys? Who was the dirtiest player you ever battled with in the trenches? I don't know. Maybe I've told you this story before, Ebbs, but I remember we played against the Lions one year. I think that was 2011, 2012. Yeah, we played against the Lions. And again, this was one of those weeks in the film where Andy was like, all right, Uche, it's going to be you. It's going to be you and Ndamukong Suh. You're not going to get much help. But you better get your mind right. Don't let him pull any of this bullshit you see on film, because that was the week after he got done stomping the guard from Green Bay.
Oh, my God.
So the next week we're playing him, and Andy's like, hey, we're not going to start any fights. We're not dirty players, but we're not taking any shit either. So you don't take any shit from this guy. So don't take any shit from this guy. Yeah, he's going to play. We know he's good. We know he's a first-round guy. But we're not taking any shit. And so this whole week, Andy's like in my ear after every play in practice, don't take any shit, Uche. And then he'd give me that little smirk, that little Andy half smirk.
Yeah.
He'd give me the little Andy half smirk, and I'd be like, I got you, coach. I'm good. I'm not worried about this guy.
Got you, dude.
And I wasn't worried about him. I was like, all right. I mean, I played against, at that point in the season, dude, I had played against like 4 Pro Bowl defensive tackles. And
what year was that?
Was huh?
Was that the Malarkey year?
Yeah. Well, that was the year. No, what was it? Yeah, I think that was either the Malarkey year.
I remember watching that from the sidelines because I wasn't dressing.
Yeah, you were hurt. You were hurt. That was after. I think we had already. Was that the same year we played Buffalo in Buffalo when it rained a little bit?
Yeah.
When you got hurt, like mid fucking drive, I didn't even notice you were gone. I was like, "Hey, where's Eben?" Like, he was just in the huddle like 2 plays ago, and you just jog. I remember just in my peripheral, I thought I saw you jog off this is the sideline. I think that's when you said torn your rotator.
Well, that was
your
the Chiefs.
labrum.
That was the Chiefs game.
That was the Chiefs game. Shit, I do got CTE. I thought that was a Buffalo game. No, dude, that was a Buffalo game.
No, I did that in the Chiefs game because it was against Mike Vrabel.
Oh.
And fucking Todd Bowman was quarterback. It was mayhem.
But so just to kind of finish that story,
dude, yeah.
We ended up playing against Detroit, and I was so ready for a fight. I was ready to fucking whoop this. I was gonna be like, hey, if he pulls any shit, we're both getting kicked out of this game because I'm gonna fuck him up. And I was so ready the entire game, every play, every down, dude. When the ball snapped, punch him in his face hard as I could, grab him on his shit, just kind of like snatch him up. And I was like, damn, he hadn't said nothing to me the whole game. I'm like, damn, he's kind of like not even playing hard. Like, and it ended up being his lowest graded game of the year at the end of the season was against me. And I was just like, was he scared of me? Or was maybe he was, maybe he wasn't on his Adderall, because I definitely took mine. I was ready to go that game.
He was feeling your vibe, dude.
Oh, man. I was like, if this cat even tries it. And, I kind of was thinking to myself during that game, this is one of those games I remember like it was yesterday. I was thinking to myself, he must only do this to the white cats. He must not try it with the brothers, because he knows the brothers ain't playing that shit. We gonna go straight. We gonna both get kicked out because we gonna fight right here on this field. I don't give a damn, because I was just ready, dude. I was like, they're gonna find me. I don't care, because at the end of the day, I'm not gonna be on no highlight reel of this cat stomping or kicking or punching me. That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, fuck all that.
So I was ready for it. It never manifested itself, and he never said a word to me the entire game, dude. I promise you, he never said one solitary word.
I remember that.
And I was, yeah, and I was just kind of like, damn, like seemed like he was hella subdued, like he was sedated. And that ended up being, that was the dirtiest player I had gone against by reputation. But it never really manifested itself on the field. What about you, Eb?
Well, in that Kansas City game where I dislocated my shoulder twice in the same game, there was a play. This dude, Sean Smith, was so fucking dirty. And there was a play where there was like a pile. Maybe it was a fumble. There was a fucking huge pile of dudes. I went in. Dude, when I went down, somebody fucking like punch grabbed my balls. From behind. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? And I was like, and I looked and I thought, because he had been talking shit throughout the game. And then I see on film that it was him, and I see him on film. He is just running down.
Oh, I think I remember this.
He fucking just like literally swung his fucking arm right up behind up my ass. It was unbelievable. And in that game, that was the game where it was like we had a drive in the middle of the second quarter for a touchdown. And it was one of the last plays. It was like an outside zone, and they played that 3-4 and we were playing it where I would punch through the outside shoulder of that 4-eye.
And then I would take him, and then you would take
him, and I'd move up to the linebacker.
Yeah.
I'm moving up to the linebacker, and that dude, I think his name's Derek Johnson, the linebacker.
Yeah, Derek Johnson, yeah.
He comes and fucking puts his helmet right in my chest. My legs get tied up in like the wave of players. I go down, land on my elbow, come up, and my elbow or my shoulder's dislocated.
Yeah. And
then I popped it back in right there. And then we finished the drive with a touchdown, and I went off to the sideline, and I'm like, to Justin, the trainer, and I'm like, Justin, get me a fucking shoulder harness, bro. My shoulder just dislocated, and he's looking at me like, what? And I'm like, dude, we don't have fucking time. Go get the fucking harness. We're gonna be out there in a 2-minute drill in about 5 minutes. And sure enough, we like a NASCAR change. Throw my shoulder pads off, throw the harness on, throw the shoulder pads back on. And by the time my shit was back on, I was running out to the field for the 2-minute drill. And it's like 2 plays in. And I'm pass blocking because we're in a 2-minute drill, so it's all passing now.
Yeah.
And I'm blocking fucking Mike Vrabel. And I go to punch, and he swipes my right arm, and it just comes right out of the socket. Harness again. And I'm like, fuck. And this time I couldn't pop it back in because of the harness.
Yeah.
So I'm like running off the field, like tapping my helmet. And Jordan is running on. Jordan Black is running on. And it took the fucking team docs like 3 minutes to put my shoulder back in the socket. I'm on the bench, and they're like, Eb, can we get you in the locker room? I'm like, fuck no, dude. I'm not fucking arm back in. That was insane. And the crazy thing is, I came out of that game and I was like, oh, I'll be ready for Dallas next week.
Yeah.
You know? And Carlos, our head team doc, Tandrin, after the game, he's like, Eb, I can't let you play again this year. You have to have surgery on this immediately and get it fixed because there's no way that
He's like, dude, your fucking shoulders, it's not in socket right now.
your arm's falling off, dude.
It's okay. Just put it in the harness. No, that's crazy, man. That's a great story. I remember when he jogged off, I just kind of looked at my periph like, what the fuck? Where's that been going? And you know, Jordan Black, I love Jordan, man. He comes into the game.
Yeah.
He's in the huddle. And and when he comes in the huddle, I kind of take a look at him like, you ready for this shit? Because we're in 2-minute drill. And it's about to get real. Like, I can't talk to you because I'm tired of shit. But I can look at you and just give you that look like, all right, here we go. You're fresh, so you better say something. This motherfucker got in his stance with his head turned away from me and never fucking looked at me the entire drive. I was like, Jordan, who you going to? No response. I'm like, oh Jesus. No. Here we go.
That stadium is so gnarly, dude.
He was gnarly as hell, dude. I love Jordan.
I know.
All right, let's take a look here. Let's see. One of the best. Oh, that was you. Okay. Eddie D, what's your opinion on David Garrard? And I think you kind of spelled it out right here in the chat. My time in Jacksonville, David Garrard was the best quarterback we had. And, we respected Dave. We loved Dave. Dave was a great leader. He was a great quarterback. Yeah. He had the unfortunate bad luck of not having the kind of receivers that we needed at the time. Although he had, guys who could catch the ball, guys who could, who could play the possession game fairly well. We didn't have any premier receivers on our team. So, that Dave did a damn good job, even with the receivers we had.
Yeah.
Reggie Williams, Matt Jones, Dennis Northcutt. At one point, Torrey Holt. But we definitely had, a great quarterback in Dave. And I think he's one of the underrated quarterbacks of this last generation. If he had been on a team like Dallas or a team like Green Bay and had, premier level receivers, we'd be talking a very different story about him at this point. But was a great guy, had a great energy and a great love for the game, and definitely had the respect of his linemen to the fullest.
Come on.
Let's see here. Yeah, and Eddie D says he was always rooting for the Jags with him. Yeah, Dave. Oh man, Dave was a tough cookie, man. He was a tough son of a gun. I remember a couple of times when he took some shots, and I mean. On first look, I would be like, yeah, Dave's dead. Because he just laid there, crumpled on the ground. This guy's not small. He's, 6'1", 6'2", about 215, 220, 230. A solid quarterback, not a fat quarterback, not a soft quarterback, but very solid. Running back style, kind of lower body. He had big legs. He could run. Very shifty. And, Dave would take some shots and, I would look at him and just be like, well, we got Quentin Groves back there. We got Matt Henney back there. Dave might be done. And I would just reach over to grab his arm and he would have that look on his face. Dave would always have that look with his teeth showing with the big gap in the middle, and he just looked like he just got shot in the stomach. Then you get him up, and he's all good to go. He's like, appreciate it, Uche. Appreciate it, Ebs. All right, let's do this, baby. I'm like, dude, you just got fucking folded like a lawn chair. Like, you don't need a second?
Hey, Uche, how long have we been going?
We've been going for a good hour and some change. We can wrap it up if you got something you got to do.
Yeah, I got some electricians here, and then I got to go pick up my daughter from school.
All right. Well, All right, guys. Well, we are going to bring this Lineman Life conversation to an end.
I love the name, dude.
Yeah, Lineman Life, dude, because we just talk about whatever. You know, we'll talk about football. You know, we got no problem with that, but we'll talk about whatever because we don't care. We don't care. We're here to have a good time and talk with the people. Yeah, this is The Observant Lineman. Subscribe to The Observant Lineman. Hit the like button on this video. Share this video. We're going to try and do this at least once a week. Me and Ebbs come in here for a Lineman Life live broadcast. So look out for that. I'll try and get postings up a little bit earlier so guys can kind of set, by the notifications, set a time to be ready to come watch it. Also, I'm going to try and find a good time for us to start because I know a lot of guys are probably heading home right about now from work. Our lives are a little bit different, so I didn't really take into account that people are getting off work around 5 o'clock. I'm like, oh, what do you mean?
Maybe we go later.
Yeah, we might end up doing doing it a little bit later next time, so that guys can be more engaged and more into the Q&A part of the conversation. But we appreciate everybody who's been in on the live broadcast. I am Uche Waneri. This is Eben Britton. And we will talk to you guys later and see you on the next Lineman Life next week on The Observant Lineman. Appreciate you guys. Peace out.